Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. It took me 3 whole minutes to realize I had been reborn 6 years back in time. That year I was 17. What are you spacing out for, Jenna? The student council president yelled my name from beneath the stage. That's when I understood I had returned to the very day of the art festival host election. The male host had already been confirmed. According to the schedule, I was supposed to compete with his beloved white moonlight, Evelyn Shin, for the female host position. During my final speech to win votes, Evelyn was suddenly struck by a falling light bulb from the ceiling. The shattered tube left several cuts on her neck. Lucas Lee rushed onto the stage and carried her away. Since he dropped out of the election midway, I was directly chosen as the female host. But on the day of the festival, Lucas slashed my dress backstage. I gripped the hem of the fabric tightly, trembling as I insisted that I had nothing to do with Evelyn getting hit by the light. He twirled a folding knife in his hand with a half-smile that wasn't really a smile. "Who knows," he said. "Everyone knows you can't stand her. Even if it wasn't you, just take this as a warning. Don't mess with Evelyn again." I had no choice but to throw on an ill-fitting gown and go on stage anyway, but I couldn't shake the weight of everything. And it showed in my performance. I was off the entire event. After it ended, the student council chewed me out for 2 hours. Snapping out of my memory, I looked up and saw the light above Evelyn's head swaying dangerously. I didn't have time to think. I rushed forward and shoved her out of the way. The next second, the light crashed to the ground and exploded on impact. Just as my hand touched Evelyn's arm, I was suddenly yanked backward and thrown to the floor. Lucas caught Evelyn with one arm, his eyes cold and sharp. "Touch her again and see what happens," he said. My knee was scraped and bleeding, and I couldn't help but let out a soft hiss. Someone nearby hesitated before speaking. I think Jenna pushed Evelyn to stop the light from hitting her. Lucas's gaze shifted ever so slightly. Having come back to life, I didn't want to say a single word to him. I pushed myself off the ground and turned to the student council president. "I'm dropping out of the election. I need to go treat my injury, so I won't be giving my final speech." Everyone looked stunned, mouths hanging open. It was like they couldn't believe I'd give up the chance to share the stage with Lucas. The president paused for a beat before saying, "All right, be careful then." As I rubbed my knee and walked away, I could still hear the chatter behind me. "Damn, is she dropping out just because she's mad about Evelyn and Lucas? Isn't it obvious? But hey, at least Lucas can finally have some peace. She's been following him around like a shadow. It's so annoying. Peace please. I bet by this afternoon she'll be back chasing him again." I let out a silent sigh. Seems like the old me really was hopelessly love-struck. No wonder everyone had that impression of me. In my past life, after I married Lucas, he threatened to use my parents' jobs to force me into donating a kidney to Evelyn. He gently caressed the diamond ring on my finger as if it were nothing, issuing a cold warning. "Everything in this house is premarital property. If you even think of using anything to get close to your parents, be ready to see them sued." The truth was, even if my parents lost their jobs, we had enough savings to get by. But Lucas's assistant hinted that for Miss Evelyn, the boss would stop at nothing. If you don't want your parents to get caught up in scams or slapped with a sky-high lawsuit, it's best you agree sooner rather than later. That whole incident left a lasting trauma in me. So, in this second life, making money became my #1 priority. I needed to earn. And not just a little, I needed a lot. Only then would I never again be so easily threatened. Only then would I finally have the power to say no. I was deep in thought as I walked until I passed the bulletin board and saw Simon Park's photo under the scholarship section. His features were striking, with a quiet coldness in his eyes that felt almost indifferent. So different from the man he would become 6 years later. I remembered how the media described him back then. A trailblazer in a new commercial empire, unmatched among modern business elites. Right now though, Simon was just a quiet, top-performing student from a poor family in our class. I planned to take a shortcut to stick to him early and build up goodwill, hoping he'd take me along to make money one day. After getting my wound treated, I made it back to class just before the lunch break ended. My gaze drifted across to Simon Park's seat. I pressed my lips together, but in the end didn't say anything. If you're being overly kind for no reason, people are bound to think you're up to something. It wasn't until Friday evening at the class dinner that I finally worked up the nerve to sit next to Simon, acting like it was just by chance. From time to time, I'd sneak glances at him. He was so focused that he didn't even notice Lucas across from him, staring at me for ages before realizing I was looking back at him with a puzzled expression. His cold eyes narrowed slightly. Is she sick or something? Lucas and his group of rich boys had never liked Simon. Even at a simple meal, they had to find some way to pick on him. One of them spun the lazy Susan with fake casualness, saying pointedly, "Eat up, everyone. The owner of this place is a friend of mine, so he's giving us a discount you can't normally get. Otherwise, let's be real, some people probably couldn't even afford to eat here." He stopped spinning the platter. A dish piled high with chili peppers slid to a stop in front of Simon. The guy smiled cheerfully and said, "No need to be polite, man. Dig in." Simon had a weak stomach. Twice during class, he'd been rushed to the hospital with gastric flare-ups. There's no way they didn't know. It was clearly a calculated move to humiliate him. Simon didn't pick up his chopsticks. The table fell awkwardly silent. A few people looked uncomfortable, but none dared to speak up. After all, those rich kids weren't exactly easy to mess with. But after dying once, my attitude toward this kind of thing had completely changed. I reached out, spun the lazy Susan around, and smiled at the boy across the table. "Thanks so much," I said sweetly. "In that case, I won't hold back." I rotated a dish of pork rib and yam soup in front of me, then calmly picked up Simon's bowl and filled it to the brim before placing it back in front of him. "Oops, sorry," I said lightly. "Took the wrong bowl." Simon looked at me, his gaze flickering across our seats. Surrounded by curious stares, I calmly served myself a bowl, took a small sip, then looked up and smiled again at the boy. "It really tastes different from what I usually get at ordinary restaurants. I can't believe you managed to get us this price. You're amazing." His ears turned bright red from the compliment. It's nothing," he said, flustered. "If you like it, have as much as you want. Just let the waiter know. I'll cover it." Yep. Child psychology works like a charm on simple-minded guys. The class president quickly jumped in to lighten the mood, and soon everyone started eating again. Simon quietly took a spoonful of soup. I casually struck up a conversation. "You're not a fan of pork ribs. Want me to turn the tray for you and bring something else over?" He didn't answer. His gaze moved from the soup to my face, studying me carefully. There was a subtle glint of amusement in his eyes. "What's your angle?" he asked plainly, straight to the point. The big shot saw right through me. I smiled with a touch of awkwardness and confessed, "Honestly, I suck at physics. I was hoping you could tutor me. As thanks, I could bring you breakfast every day." Simon gave a faint chuckle, but his voice was still cool. Before he could respond, I cut in. "You probably think I've got some other hidden motive, right? That I'm just pretending to be nice because I like you or something." I shook my head and smiled, unfazed. "It's okay. I'll prove it to you." He pressed his lips together but didn't say anything else. A few moments later, though, he started drinking the soup. After dinner, I said goodbye to Simon and walked home alone under the trees. A black car slowly pulled up beside me. The rear window rolled down. Evelyn, Shun, and Lucas were inside. Evelyn smiled and waved. "Jenna, need a ride?" I shook my head. "My place is really close." Lucas's eyes glinted meaningfully. "So close that even your boyfriend Simon doesn't offer to take you home." "Some boyfriend he is," he smirked. "Not like me. I always made sure the driver took Evelyn home first." Lucas sat in the shadows on the far side of the back seat, his expression hard to read. I didn't care whether Lucas and Evelyn were together or not, but spreading rumors about me was something I couldn't tolerate. Simon still didn't like me. If gossip about us started spreading, he'd definitely be pissed. I looked directly at Evelyn, my voice turning cold. "And what made you think Simon is my boyfriend?" "If he's not," Lucas cut in, "then why are you jumping in to defend him?" He got out of the car, slammed the door, and walked straight toward me. His eyes locked on the corner of my mouth. "You're not just classmates if you can smile at him like that." Do you even know how many times you smiled at him tonight? His anger came out of nowhere, but my instinct told me to keep my distance from Lucas. Simon and I are just regular classmates. Tonight, I simply couldn't stand the way you guys were treating him. With that, I stepped around him and hurried off. I didn't know how far I'd gone before I heard fast, heavy footsteps behind me. Almost at the same time, someone grabbed my arm. I turned and met Lucas's eyes. And for a moment, it felt like I was back in my past life, trapped in that villa, forced to donate a kidney. Fear jolted through me, and I let out a sharp scream. Lucas frowned. It's me. I struggled hard. Let go of me. He pulled me into his chest, one hand gently rubbing my back, his voice soft like he was comforting me. It's okay. Don't be scared. It's me. It's Lucas. I pushed against his shoulder with everything I had, tears streaming down my face. Let go of me. Let go of me. Lucas's body stiffened, and a few seconds later, he finally released me. I quickly backed away until my back hit a wall. Only then did I feel a sliver of safety. The night was dark, and I couldn't make out the expression in his eyes. His voice sounded confused. Jenna, you're afraid of me. I lifted my hand and wiped the tears from my face. Please stay away from me from now on. I don't like you anymore. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Just as I finished, Lucas sneered, his lips curling into a mocking smile. His gaze was arrogant and sharp. Don't flatter yourself. When have I ever been the one chasing after you? Swallowing my emotions, I nodded seriously. Don't worry, I won't bother you again. Lucas casually set the plastic bag in his hand on top of the nearby trash can lid. He better mean that. It wasn't until he'd walked off that I stepped forward to see what was in the plastic bag. Inside were ointments for treating minor injuries. I moved my fingers gently over the scar on my knee. It had already healed, but I still felt a dull ache. After that night, Lucas completely treated me like I was invisible. I finally let out a breath of relief, which allowed me to focus more on building rapport with Simon. Simon ranked first in the exams again. I handed him a warm cup of milk tea and said, "Wow, Simon, you're amazing. Always first in the entire grade. You've never even dropped once." He twirled his pen without even looking at me, lips lifting into a faint, sarcastic smile. You really think that kind of flattery works on me? Clearly, child psychology only worked on idiots. I didn't let it get to me. I kept a straight face. I'm serious. I really do think you're incredible. Simon glanced at me a couple of times but didn't react. I didn't get discouraged. For the sake of earning big money in the future, I had to keep going. I made him soup that was good for the stomach and packed it in a thermal container to bring to school. Whenever the homeroom teacher praised him during class meetings, I'd be the first to clap. On weekends, when he worked part-time at the coffee shop, I'd even go sit there and keep him company. Eventually, Simon seemed to get used to me and no longer pushed me away. I often followed behind him. One day at the coffee shop, another guy who also worked part-time shook his head and sighed. Come on, Simon. A girl this cute is chasing you, and you still won't say yes. Simon was scooping ice into a cup, eyes lowered like he hadn't heard anything. I froze, then quickly turned to the guy and blurted, flustered. I'm not chasing Simon. We're just friends. Simon's hand twitched, and the ice cube slipped from the scoop, clattering to the floor. I turned and met his eyes, dark and unreadable. I blinked hesitantly. Wait, do you think I'm chasing you? Simon bent down, picked up the ice, and tossed it in the trash. His voice was calm. No, I've never thought that. He went back to grinding coffee, movements smooth and steady. The intense emotion I thought I saw just moments ago. Maybe it really was just my imagination. Even though Simon hadn't said anything, having two people in a row mistakenly think I liked him made me start to reflect. Maybe I'd been trying too hard to win his favor. If Simon heard any rumors about us, he might end up resenting me. So I stopped bringing him soup. I stopped seeking him out or clinging to him. But a few times after class, I'd still catch his eyes meeting mine across several rows of desks. He stood there quietly, staring at my thin figure. There was something about the fragile way he held himself that stirred a soft ache in my chest, and I couldn't help but feel my heart soften. So, I made up my mind to go keep him company at the cafe where he worked again this Saturday. But Simon's condition didn't allow me to wait that long. During free activity time in gym class, I saw him sitting alone in the pavilion, clutching his stomach. Even from a distance, I could see his shoulders trembling. I immediately ran over and crouched in front of him. "Simon, what's wrong? Is it your stomach again?" His face was pale, lips tightly pressed together as he fought through what looked like unbearable pain. He gave the faintest hum of acknowledgement and braced himself against the pillar to stand. "I'll go to the nurse's office first." "I'll take you," I said, reaching out to help him. Simon avoided my hand. "You don't need to go to the trouble." Panicked, I grabbed his arm and slung it over my shoulder. "What are you talking about? Why are you suddenly being so polite with me?" Simon lowered his eyes and mumbled softly, "Didn't you already say you didn't like me anymore?" He gently brushed off my hand and pressed his own to his stomach. "I don't need your pity. It's just a stomach problem. It's not going to kill me. I can go by myself. You should keep your distance." But his legs gave out before he even got a few steps, and he collapsed back onto the bench. Frustrated and worried, I rushed to his side and held him up, rambling through the panic in my voice. "I don't hate you. Just let me help you, okay? Please don't act like this right now." He didn't move. "Simon, could you just listen for once?" I was so anxious I nearly cried. Finally, he lifted his arm and rested it on my shoulder. His head dropped against the crook of my neck, and in a hoarse whisper he muttered, "It really hurts." His cold, distant facade cracked just enough to let a little vulnerability slip through. I was too overwhelmed to say anything. Half his weight was leaning on me, but somehow he didn't feel heavy at all. When we got to the nurse's office, there was already another group inside. The school nurse was tending to someone at the center of the room. "Lucas, your wrist is badly injured. You won't be able to play basketball for a while," she said. "I'm going to grab some ointment from the other building. Wait here." Lucas silently turned his head and looked toward us. I helped Simon sit at the farthest corner of the room from them, but it didn't stop the whispers. "Wow. What's going on with those two? I thought Jenna was totally obsessed with Lucas. Now she's got a new target." Simon's lips were dry and pale. I leaned in and asked softly, "Do you want some warm water?" He gave a tiny nod. I poured a cup and placed it in his hand, but he barely had the strength to hold it. It slipped slightly in his grip. I sighed and took the cup back, gently bringing it to his lips. "Holy crap, she's feeding him now," someone whispered behind us. "She never even treated Lucas that well. You can totally tell she likes this poor genius guy." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed behind us. A chair had been knocked over. Lucas left the nurse's office without saying a word, slamming the door so hard the frame trembled from the impact. His buddies all looked at each other, confused. "What's up with him? Is he pissed about missing that last three-pointer or something?" "Maybe," someone muttered. Soon, everyone else cleared out, leaving just me and Simon. He seemed to be doing a bit better than earlier, crumpling the empty paper cup in his hand with a quiet smirk. "So you like guys like Lucas, huh?" His tone was casual, but there was something unreadable in his eyes. "I can't compare to him. No wonder you avoid me like the plague. I'd be grossed out too if people kept mistaking someone like me as your crush." His lips curved faintly as if it were no big deal, but I could hear the self-mockery buried in his words. I didn't say anything for a while. Simon looked calm on the surface, but the way his hand clenched around the paper cup made it clear he was holding something back. "Oh, so he's a prickly little puppy when he gets jealous." I reached out, cupped his face in both hands, leaned in, and tilted my head like I was seriously inspecting him. "Don't say anything, Simon. I'm trying to see what exactly is so gross." I made a show of looking him over. Definitely better looking than Lucas, and your grades are even better, too. Your personality is better than his, too," I said. Simon's gray eyes locked onto mine, intense and focused. A sulky puppy like him probably needed a little praise to rebuild his confidence. I let go of his face, speaking to him like I was teaching a little kid. "Simon, don't talk about yourself like that again." He lowered his eyelids and murmured, "But you suddenly stopped talking to me." "I'm sorry," I mumbled. "I thought you didn't like people assuming things about us, so I tried to give you space." Simon leaned his head naturally against my shoulder. I only hate it when you ignore me. I was caught off guard. On the way here, he had leaned on me out of necessity. But now, wasn't this a bit too close? He must have sensed the sudden stiffness in my body. Lifting his head slightly, he muttered, "It hurts. I can't really sit up straight. Jenna, would you mind if I leaned on you like this?" I stiffened like a scarecrow, but I didn't want to hurt his pride by rejecting him, so I forced a relaxed tone and shook my head. Of course not. Friends can lean on each other. It's normal. He gave a small smile and rested back on my shoulder again. I rubbed my temple as the school nurse handed Simon a huge bag of medicine for his stomach. I had almost nursed his gastritis back to full recovery. And now he was right back to square one. Once he wasn't around me, he clearly didn't take care of himself at all. At lunch, I went to the cafeteria with him. 2 cafeteria workers were pushing carts past us, chatting loudly behind our backs. Kids these days, something's got to be wrong in their heads. This morning, I saw this really handsome boy scoop a whole ladle of chili peppers into his porridge. He was sweating buckets and still kept eating. Honestly, it was kind of scary to watch. Simon stood beside me, expression calm and unreadable. I leaned in and reminded him, "Your stomach's sensitive. Stay away from spicy food, okay?" He raised the back of his hand and gently brushed my cheek, his eyes light and casual. "Don't worry, I never touch spicy stuff." Later, Simon offered to tutor me in physics. To make tutoring easier, when the class reshuffled seating again, we were assigned to sit together. At the same time, Lucas ended up seated directly behind me. During a self-study period, I leaned over with my workbook and whispered, "Simon, can you help me with this problem if you're free?" He scribbled a detailed solution on scrap paper. I understood it right away and gave a small satisfied smile. "Thanks. Can you two keep it down?" Lucas suddenly snapped. He didn't even bother lowering his voice, loud enough for the entire class to hear. Everyone turned to look. He tossed his pen on the desk and leaned back, arms crossed, face cold and emotionless. Self-study time is for studying, not chatting. I had been speaking as softly as I could. Besides, Simon hadn't even said a word. The room had never been silent. There was always some whispering in the background. It was obvious Lucas was picking a fight. I glared at him, biting back my anger. The tension in the room rose instantly. Simon, on the other hand, stayed calm. In his usual gentle tone, he looked toward Lucas and said, "Don't make it hard for Jenna. I'll apologize to you. All right? Can we let it go?" Lucas let out a cold laugh. "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" I clutched Simon's sleeve. "Why should you apologize? You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't even speak." But Simon replied in his usual easygoing tone, "I'm used to it. If a simple apology can settle things, then there's no need to escalate." He lifted his brows slightly. "It's not like they're going to rearrange our seats over this." That one offhand remark suddenly gave me an idea. Lucas obviously didn't like seeing us sit together. He was only going to keep finding ways to cause trouble. It'd be better to just move now. I pulled on Simon's arm and said, "Let's pack up. We'll change seats after class." I huffed. "Let's stay far away from him." Lucas suddenly looked even angrier. He shot up from his seat, knocking the chair over behind him. His eyes locked on me, dark and intense, like a storm was about to break loose. I was completely confused. Lucas's current seatmate glanced between us, then quickly jumped in, waving his hands. Sorry. Lucas has just been in a bad mood lately. He didn't mean to target you guys. Seriously, don't bother changing seats." We hadn't even been in our new seats for long. If we went to ask for another change now, no way would our homeroom teacher approve. Lucas's deskmate quickly stood up, helped him pick up his chair, and gave his sleeve a subtle tug. Lucas sat back down, his expression still stormy, but he didn't say anything else. His deskmate patted his chest and promised, "If this kind of thing happens again and you two want to change seats, I swear I won't stop you." "All right," I said after thinking about it. I could accept that, but still. I turned to check with Simon. Simon's eyes were still fixed on Lucas's deskmate. He didn't even bother to look away and replied with a faint, almost indifferent smile. "Sure," He casually twirled his pen on the edge of his worksheet and added, "Why wouldn't it be okay?" Lucas and his gang had an inexplicable grudge against Simon. During the long break, they started tossing a basketball back and forth inside the classroom. A few exchanged glances, and then one of them deliberately aimed the ball right toward Simon, who was seated next to me. Lucas leaned against the doorway, watching coldly. Instinctively, I stepped in front of Simon. In that moment, I didn't think about anything else, just that I didn't want him to get hurt. It wasn't some calculated move. The basketball sliced through the air toward me, wind rushing past my face. But just before it hit, Lucas intercepted it. He threw the ball down hard on the floor, his palm slapping against it with visible force. Then he grabbed my wrist and yanked me out of the classroom. "Let go of me." I struggled. At the end of the hallway, he released my arm. I stumbled back 2 steps before barely regaining my balance. My blood boiled. Without hesitation, I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. My voice shook with anger. "What the hell is wrong with you? Did I do something to piss you off?" I had been reborn. I was already doing my best to stay away from him. Why couldn't I get rid of him? Lucas took a step closer, his tone sharp. "Do you even realize what you were doing just now? If I hadn't blocked that ball, your nose would have been smashed in. What exactly is going on between you and Simon, huh? You care about him that much?" He backed me against the wall, his entire presence radiating the pressure of an approaching storm. "Did you forget that you used to like me?" he said. I wasn't surprised by his sudden outburst at all. It was obvious he just couldn't handle the fact that someone who used to chase after him no longer cared. I didn't bother explaining. Instead, I lowered my head and sank my teeth into his wrist hard. He flinched, and the moment his grip loosened, I shoved him away and ran. I fully expected Lucas to retaliate after that, but without warning, he went on leave for an entire week. The next time I saw him, he looked pale and sickly, his eyes darker than ever. The intense calm in his expression was more terrifying than his outburst had been a week ago. When our eyes met, I couldn't help but picture the Lucas from 6 years in the future. My palms grew clammy with cold sweat. The entire morning, he sat silently behind me, not making a sound. Even during breaks, he didn't move. At lunchtime, our homeroom teacher called Simon into the office and kept him for most of the period. He didn't come back, so I went to the cafeteria alone and decided to pack up some light food for him while I was at it. But just as I stepped out of the academic building, a hand suddenly clamped over my mouth and pulled me into an alley behind the building. No one passed through this area. Lucas pinned me against the wall, using his knee to lock my legs in place. One hand gripped both of my wrists, and the other covered the lower half of my face. I couldn't move. I couldn't make a sound. All I could do was glare at him, furious. Lucas didn't seem to care. He lowered his head into the curve of my neck, breathing in deeply like he was savoring the scent. "Jenna, I'm back," he murmured. A chill shot up my spine and spread through my whole body. My blood felt like it froze. In the past, Lucas had never called me Jenna in that tone. He lifted his head again, my eyes locked with his, and what I saw was unmistakable. The obsession and twisted darkness that belonged to the Lucas from 6 years in the future. "The last time we got married 4 years after graduation," he said, his voice eerily calm. "This time, let's just get engaged as soon as we graduate, or maybe skip it, move overseas, and get married right after." Those words dragged me back to those suffocating memories of our post-marriage life. I stared at the still youthful face in front of me, desperately trying to reason with him. "Evelyn isn't even sick yet. You can take better care of her," I said breathlessly. "Take her to get regular checkups, whatever she needs. Lucas, just let me go, please. You'll find someone else, someone better than me. Just this once. Let me go, can't you?" My words came out faster and faster, until I was practically shouting by the end. But Lucas didn't move. "I've told you more than once. I don't have any feelings for Evelyn. I only love you," he said flatly. "I made you donate a kidney because she saved me when we were kids. I owe her my life." I didn't believe a word of it. No one who loves someone would act like this. I shoved him while he was distracted, managing to break free and make a run for it. But as soon as I hit the main road, he caught up to me and grabbed my wrist tightly. "Jenna, listen to me," he started. You're hurting her. Simon had just returned from the school office and happened to see everything. Without hesitation, he pushed Lucas's hand away and stepped in front of me protectively. Lucas's anger ignited instantly. Get lost. He grabbed Simon by the collar and flung him backward. Simon stumbled several steps before crashing into half-constructed metal scaffolding nearby. The sound of the impact made my stomach twist. Simon groaned as he slid down to the ground, his back slumped against the wall. I rushed to his side. He had hit his head. Blood was trickling from his temple. Simon, stay with me. I cried, my voice trembling. His eyes were starting to close. We're going to the hospital now, I said urgently. He propped himself up against the frame and leaned on me, his blood dripping onto the ground. Despite the pain, he managed a faint smile. Don't worry, I won't pass out. Even though he was barely able to stand, he still pulled me behind him, shielding me with his body. He glanced sideways at Lucas. I still have to protect you. My heart skipped a beat, but everything was happening too fast for me to process it fully. As I supported Simon past Lucas heading toward the school gate, Lucas finally spoke up behind us. After a long silence, I didn't push him hard. He hit that thing on his own. Jenna, he said, reaching out as if to take my hand. I pulled away and helped Simon around him without looking back. Lucas froze mid-motion as if suspended in place. Is it really so hard to believe me just once? He said. His voice was barely more than a whisper, fragile and fading into the wind. It was always like this with him, even in my past life. He told me again and again that he only loved me. And yet, to make me donate a kidney to Evelyn, he broke mentally and emotionally over and over. At the hospital, Simon sat in the exam room. A bandage wrapped around his forehead while waiting for a tetanus shot. I sat beside him, fussing nonstop. Simon, thank you for protecting me. But Lucas is trained in combat. You're no match for him. Don't ever do that again. He won't hit me, but he could knock you out with one punch. Simon stared at me like I just told the world's dumbest joke. You think I can't beat him? I shook his shoulders in all seriousness. I'm being real. He barely used any force, and he still sent you flying. If he had used full strength, you'd be out cold. Simon gave a dry cough. I tripped on the scaffolding. Okay. Sure. Sure, I said, playing along, though I clearly didn't buy it. Just as I stood up to leave, he grabbed my wrist. You really don't believe me? I turned back, met his eyes and said nothing. But my look probably said it all. Seriously, doesn't he know how fragile he is? He can't even stay on his feet when his stomach hurts. One light shove and he's down. For someone that tall, he really doesn't have much strength. Honestly, I doubt he could even beat me in a fight. Still, I chose my words carefully to protect his pride. I believe you, I said gently. I'll go get your meds. Stay here and wait for your shot. Simon looked like he still wanted to argue, but I didn't give him the chance. I quickly slipped out, shaking my head as I walked. I used to think Simon was different, but it turns out he's just as childish and prideful as the rest of them, and strangely, I didn't hate it. In fact, that contrast made him kind of endearing. Lucas, like some persistent ghost, blocked my path again after school. I rubbed my temples in frustration. What do you want now? Stay away from Simon, Lucas said, stepping closer to me. He doesn't have good intentions toward you. He didn't even try to hide the possessiveness in his voice. For a second, I actually thought, maybe he really does have feelings for me. But I looked him straight in the eyes and said, Lucas, I think there's something I've always forgotten to tell you. Afraid he wouldn't believe me, I made sure to pronounce every word clearly, slicing any ambiguity right in half. A long time ago, I stopped liking you. The warm yellow light from the street lamps couldn't reach the darkness in his eyes. He turned his face away, tone ice cold. I didn't come back to hear that. Well, I didn't come back just to be forced into giving someone a kidney again, I said. Lucas's jaw tightened. I won't do that again. Is this really something we can't move past? He stepped closer and pinned me back against the wall. What do I have to do for you to forget what happened and start over with me? Tell me. I had nowhere else to retreat, but somehow I felt calm. I stood on my toes, grabbed his collar, and yanked him down to my level. If you won't let me go, I whispered, then I'll take us both down together. I've already died once. I have nothing to lose. His eyes flickered. I saw it in your eyes, I continued. The day your relationship with Evelyn went public, and it hit the trending searches. If coming back to life just means repeating the same hell I went through, then I'd rather die, and I'll drag you with me. I shoved him back hard into the wall, and turned to leave. As I finally walked out of the alley, I heard his voice behind me, low and muffled. That was the media stirring things up. Then he gave a short, bitter laugh. Forget it. None of it matters anyway. No matter what I say, you'll never believe me. Footsteps followed, then passed. Lucas walked right by me, eyes straight ahead, never looking back. His broad figure eventually disappeared from view. I let out a long breath. He was finally letting me go. After that day, Lucas returned to treating me like I didn't exist. The art festival was drawing near, and excitement buzzed through every hallway in the school, momentarily drowning out the looming pressure of college entrance exams. Lucas and Evelyn walked around every day, rehearsing with their scripts, always together. Meanwhile, Simon was forced by our homeroom teacher to sign up for a piano performance. He was just as good-looking as Lucas, maybe even more so. But his personality, quiet and reserved, kept him from getting the same attention. That changed when he stepped onto the art festival stage. Under the spotlight, shadows and light danced around him. The glow settled on his downcast lashes, the sharp lines of his profile, and his fingers moving gracefully across the black and white keys. Holy crap! How did I never realize our top student was this handsome? He's like a novel's male lead brought to life. I'm switching teams. Goodbye, Lucas. Cut it out, you guys. Someone laughed. Lucas is still hotter in my opinion. In an instant, Simon became the center of attention. As his performance neared its end, I ran backstage with a bouquet of blue and white flowers in my arms, waiting for him. Then Lucas appeared behind me, holding a microphone. Excuse me. His voice was cool and distant. You're standing in the way. Startled, I stepped back awkwardly, clutching the bouquet tighter to give him room. Lucas passed by without so much as a glance. It was like we were complete strangers. Simon came off the stage shortly after, and just as I was about to hand him the flowers, a girl rushed past me. She was a classmate, too, clearly looking for Simon. Can I add you on WeChat? She asked, nervously tucking her hair behind her ear. I'm learning piano too. Maybe you could help me out sometime. She was clearly shy, barely daring to look at him. I blinked quietly, stepping back to give them space, pretending not to care. But disappointment bubbled up inside me like a kettle left too long on the stove, the pressure rattling the lid, and leaving my chest tight with noise. Simon turned her down without hesitation. Sorry. The girl bit her lip. Why? He glanced briefly at me, clearly thinking through his words before answering. Because he's broke. Evelyn cut in smoothly from a short distance away. All he does is go to school and work part-time jobs. Where would he get the time to teach you piano? Lucas stood nearby, holding a script, completely uninterested in the situation. The girl frowned and turned to Simon. Is that true? Simon lowered his gaze, hiding all his emotions. His Adam's apple moved slightly, followed by a soft chuckle. Yeah, I guess I forgot to mention I'm a scholarship student. He tugged at the corners of his mouth, giving a faint nod. Almost forgot I'm broke. I shoved the bouquet into Simon's arms, smiling brightly, trying to pass that cheerfulness on to him. You are amazing, Simon. Congratulations on the performance. Then I turned and aimed my next words squarely at Evelyn. At least us ordinary folks have healthy bodies. She glared at me. What's that supposed to mean, Miss Princess? Do you get regular checkups? Are your test results all normal? Like your kidneys, for example? I smiled innocently, just trying to be helpful. If something goes wrong and you ever need a transplant, you might not find a match, money or not. With that, I tugged Simon away and walked off. I didn't care what kind of expression Lucas had. In this life, my parents had been transferred overseas for work. He couldn't use them to threaten me anymore. Simon started getting more and more attention from girls. The frustration I felt every time someone asked him for his contact info finally made me realize I'd fallen for him. but he seemed to see me as just his best friend. And with college entrance exams right around the corner, I couldn't afford to let my feelings distract me. So I buried my crush deep and focused on studying. I knew if I wanted a shot at being with him, I had to get into the same university first. Luckily, I hadn't forgotten all the key exam questions from my past life. I still remembered the essay topics from the Chinese and English exams, and even a few of the more impossible problems. That little advantage helped me score just high enough to get into the same college assignment. After we finished submitting our college applications, we went hiking together once. Halfway up the mountain, I started falling behind, panting heavily. Simon knelt down in front of me. "I'll carry you." "No way." I pressed a cold bottle of water against my flushed face to cool down. "You've barely rested these past weeks, tutoring, studying. If you carry me, neither of us will make it to the top." Simon's hand tightened around his water bottle until the plastic crumpled. He looked up at me, smiling faintly, but something about it felt off. Before I could react, he swept his arm under my legs and picked me up. "Simon, stop showing off. Put me down right now." His grip loosened slightly, and I shrieked, quickly throwing my arms around his neck in case he dropped me. Our faces were so close I could feel his breath. Simon smirked lazily. "Still want me to put you down?" There was a spark in his eyes that made my heart flutter for a second. Embarrassed, I looked away. "You've changed. You're such a bad influence now." The afternoon sun was still blazing, and my ears were burning from the heat. But Simon really did carry me all the way to the top. And he wasn't even out of breath. I stared at him in disbelief. "Don't tell me you've been working out these last few months just because I hurt your pride." He didn't answer, just wandered off to the other side of the clearing, ignoring me. I found a tree to sit under for some shade. Just as I was about to enjoy the view, a sudden sharp pain hit my neck. Something cold and slick brushed the back of it. A snake. A real snake. Simon ran over just in time to see the little thing slither off into the grass. I was frozen in place, tears brimming, too scared to move a muscle. "Simon, what do I do? Is it venomous?" He crouched in front of me, wiping my tears and speaking gently. "No, probably not. Don't be scared." I grabbed his hand tightly. "Are you sure?" His eyes locked onto the bite on my neck. He didn't say anything at first, then finally whispered, "Just to be safe, I should suck the venom out." He leaned closer, staring straight at me. Should I? I couldn't hesitate. What if the snake really was venomous? It could spread quickly. "Okay, but be careful. Don't swallow anything." The bite was on a sensitive spot, and when his lips brushed over it, it tickled. I instinctively flinched away. Simon pressed one hand against the back of my neck. "Don't move," he mumbled, his voice slightly muffled. I didn't know how long it lasted. My fingers twisted into the fabric of his jacket until the seams wrinkled. "Simon, are you done yet?" His head shifted slightly where it was resting against my hand. "Almost," he murmured. From the moment he let go of me to when we walked back down the mountain, I kept my face buried in the crook of my arm, too embarrassed to look at him. It wasn't until I got home that I realized the snake bite on my neck had turned into a hickey. At the end of August, when orientation for freshmen began, I ran into someone I never expected to see while waiting for Simon at the school gate. Lucas stood there in front of me, one hand resting on the handle of his suitcase. His expression was calm, his gaze soft. "Jenna," he said. "I've tried, but I can't like anyone else, only you." My voice went cold. "And I've already told you I don't like you anymore." "I know," he replied as he reached for my suitcase and started walking toward the dorm building. His tone didn't waver. It was like he'd expected this all along. "It's okay, Jenna. I'll win you back." Lucas's stride was too fast. Even jogging with my bag slung across my body, I couldn't catch up. He carried my suitcase all the way to my dorm room. I stood there breathing heavily, too exhausted to even yell at him. 3 of my roommates had already arrived. "Hey," one of them greeted cheerfully. "Your boyfriend's really handsome. Is he a student here too?" Lucas replied before I could. "We're not dating. I'm the one chasing her." I shoved down my fury and pushed him out of the building. "Lucas, let me be crystal clear. I don't like you. Not now and not ever." Stop wasting your time. He pressed his lips together. I won't know it's a waste unless I try. It was like he didn't understand a word I was saying. Then, without another word, he turned and walked to his own dorm. From behind, he looked thinner, completely different from other guys our age. There was a kind of restrained cold elegance to him, like something carved from glass. Simon and I were in the same major. Lucas, though at a different school, had chosen the same major he had studied in our past life. During the 2 weeks of military training, Simon and Lucas became the most talked about freshmen, both crowned as campus kings by the girls in their respective departments. But somehow, I became even more talked about than either of them. Jenna, both of them are clearly chasing you, someone said. If it were me, I'd take them both. Simon on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, Lucas on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Sundays, they can both pamper me. Am I the only one who thinks stringing along 2 guys at the same time is a bit much? Yep, just you. Neither of them said anything. And here you are making a fuss. I rushed in to stop the conversation from spiraling. You guys are misunderstanding something. Simon's not chasing me. He only sees me as a friend. Please, he's so obviously into you. One girl shot back. I asked him point blank if he liked you, and he didn't deny it. I turned to look at her seriously, but before I could reply, a whistle from the drill instructor snapped us back to order. Break was over. Time to assemble. I stood back in line, but my head was a mess for the rest of the morning. Lucas had impeccable social skills. He knew just how much attention to give and when. Within days, he'd won over all 3 of my roommates. On the last day of military training, as we walked to the cafeteria for lunch, my roommates took turns singing his praises. We swear we're not only saying this because he gave us Tiffany necklaces. Jenna, seriously, he's the better choice, right? Tall, rich, hot. Lucas checks every box. Simon's more like the guy who ends up as your backup plan. Her voice trailed off toward the end. If Simon hadn't been standing right across from us, I bet she would have listed 100 more things Lucas had going for him. Simon's face didn't change, but the light in his eyes dimmed. That faint loneliness in his expression was impossible to miss. Poor puppy. He probably didn't even realize how pitiful he looked. Thought he was doing a great job keeping it all together. I shook my head at my roommates. Too bad Lucas was never even in the running, because I'm chasing Simon. The 3 of them froze like prairie dogs, then ducked their heads, clearly dying from secondhand embarrassment. Oh my God, Jenna, go after him already. I waved goodbye playfully. Later, you guys go eat. Don't forget to feed your Tiffany boy. Get out of here. I skipped up to Simon, who was staring at me intensely, clearly waiting for an explanation. I tilted my head and said innocently, "Oops, forgot to tell you. I like you. Can you tell me how I'm supposed to win you over?" Simon's lips turned pale, his emotions clearly on the verge of slipping out of control. I pouted slightly and asked, "Why aren't you saying anything? Is it because you've got too many people who like you and I'm just the most ordinary one? Am I not good enough to chase you?" The words had barely left my mouth when he pulled me into his arms. His arms trembled slightly as they wrapped around me. In a low, hoarse voice he said, "Don't say that, Jenna. The only one who's ever not been good enough is me." Simon always kept his emotions bottled up. If I hadn't pushed him, he never would have stepped out from behind that guarded shell. Quietly, I wrapped my arms around his waist and rubbed my face against his chest. My voice came out muffled. "Well, I say you are good enough." After we got together, Simon was practically touch-starved. In quiet corners of campus at night, where no one passed by, he would pull me onto his lap, his nose brushing lightly against the side of my neck. His kisses moved slowly up until they reached my earlobe, which he gently took into his mouth. Worried someone might walk by, I nudged his shoulder. "Simon, can we just go get a room?" The arms around me tightened. His face, shadowed under the dim light, showed emotions I could barely read. Then it hit me. He misunderstood. I rushed to explain. No, that's not what I meant. I'm just scared someone might see us here. I didn't mean I want to do anything else." Simon's voice was low and controlled as he tilted my chin up and kissed me. "If we got a room, I wouldn't be able to control myself. Don't worry, no one's coming." I clung to his shoulders, slowly sinking into the kiss. My eyes drifted shut. The air between us grew thin. My lips stung slightly, raw from the intensity before he finally pulled away. My eyes half opened and froze. Over Simon's shoulder, I saw Lucas. He was standing there, staring at us without blinking. Moments later, he looked away and left without a sound. I thought that after seeing something like that with his own eyes, he would finally give up. But the very next day, he sent one of my roommates to deliver a familiar little cake box. "Jenna," she said, distressed. "He's waiting downstairs again." He said, "This is your favorite brand," and begged me to bring it to you. I grabbed the box and ran after him, catching up just in time to throw it back into his arms. "If you try this again, I swear I'll report you for harassment." He gave a bitter smile. "Didn't you used to love this cake?" Opening the box, I saw the pastry all smashed up. The cream was smeared everywhere, completely unrecognizable. "Whenever you were mad at me," he muttered, like talking to himself, "I'd just bring this back from the office and you'd forgive me." He paused, looking down. "But this time it doesn't work, huh?" I stared at the boy in front of me, his entire presence wrapped in melancholy. "Lucas, what's the point of living in the past?" He always tried to make me remember the relationship we had in our past life. Our dating, our marriage, thinking that bringing back those memories would make me waver. But I had already moved on. The memories remained, but the feelings I had for him were long gone. After that, Lucas never approached me again. He spent his days racing or traveling around the world. But one day he just disappeared. Later, someone from the Lucas family came to withdraw him from school. A classmate from Group 20 who was close to him let it slip. During an illegal street race abroad, Lucas had gotten into a serious accident. He was paralyzed from the waist down. He would never walk again. When I heard the news, I paused for just a second. Then I went right back to quietly dating Simon. But peace never lasted long. At my first club gathering, I was pressured into doing a traditional drinking game with an upperclassman. "Jenna, are you trying to disrespect me?" he grumbled, slamming his hand on the table and slurring his words. I stayed calm. "Sorry, but my boyfriend doesn't let me drink." "Jesus Christ, it's just a drink. It's not like I'm taking you to bed. Don't act like such a prude." The room went dead silent. Everyone, especially the freshmen, looked around uncomfortably, pretending not to see. One of the club leaders rushed over, covering the guy's mouth and apologizing repeatedly. "I'm really sorry, Jenna. He's had too much. Please don't take it to heart. I'll make him apologize tomorrow when he's sober." The other senior members joined in, quietly warning me that making a scene wouldn't be good for anyone, but there were more than 10 people in that private room. Someone was bound to talk, and the story got out. Simon heard about it from his roommate. That evening, we sat across from each other in the dining hall. He poked around his food with his chopsticks but didn't eat a bite. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. I couldn't tell if he was mad. I fidgeted with my fingers. That senior apologized later. The club teacher made him write an 800-word reflection. "It's already been handled. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to get upset too." He gave a faint smile and nodded slightly. After dinner, Simon walked me back to my dorm, but he hardly spoke the whole way. I tugged gently at his sleeve. "Don't be mad, okay? I'll tell you everything from now on." He leaned down and kissed my cheek. "I'm not mad, Jenna." Then he straightened up and added softly, "You go on ahead. I have to attend an open lecture with our advisor at the university next door tonight." I trusted him completely. Not long after I got back to my dorm, a roommate who was studying at the library messaged me, asking me to bring her tablet over. The path to the library grew more deserted as I walked, so even the slightest sound stood out. I heard something strange coming from behind the academic building on my right. If I hadn't recognized the corner of a familiar jacket, I probably would have called campus security. Instead, I crept closer quietly. Out of nowhere, I remembered that moment in senior year when I told Simon he could never beat Lucas in a fight, and the look on his face was so full of disdain. And that time we hiked a mountain. Thinking back now, even Lucas wouldn't have carried me that effortlessly. I stopped in my tracks. Simon stood with his back to me, holding a golf club in one hand. The tip was stained with blood. The blood was likely from the forehead of the guy curled up on the ground in front of him. The same upperclassman who had tried to force me into drinking at the club dinner. Simon crouched down and tapped the guy's face lightly with the club. His voice was calm, almost conversational. There won't be a next time. Understood? You going to stop going after other people's girlfriends? Yes. Yes. I swear if I see Jenna again, I'll go the other way. I let out a quiet sigh. Simon, feel better now? He didn't answer. The golf club slipped from his hand, clattering to the ground. He still didn't turn around. The upperclassman looked up, spotted me, and bolted like he'd seen a ghost. I walked over and took Simon's hand. Don't bottle it all up, I said gently. I'm not scared. I'm not mad either. He held my hand loosely for a while before finally gripping it tighter. Why? He asked softly. I thought for a moment. Because you did it out of love. You hated what he did, so you stood up for me. And because you love me, you didn't go too far. You were thinking of our future. After dropping off the tablet, I brought Simon to a bench nearby and sat him down. I used a wet wipe to clean the tiny flecks of blood on his cheek. But next time, I said firmly, don't use violence. You're going to be someone important one day, famous and powerful. These things could become black marks on your record. He squeezed my fingers and chuckled softly. Why are you so sure I'll be someone great? What if I just become some ordinary office worker after we graduate? He asked. I leaned against his shoulder, lazily swinging my legs. Then you'll have it easier, less stress. Either way, I added with a yawn. I think you'll be amazing no matter what. Half asleep, I scratched my cheek and murmured, I should save up and buy really expensive insurance for myself just in case someone tries to take another organ from me. I bet the payout would be pretty big. In the third year after we graduated, a reporter on TV was interviewing Simon about why he had decided to acquire the failing Lou Corporation. I was sitting on the floor going through a box of Simon's old things, and came across his copy of A Midsummer Night's Dream. I flipped to the bookmark page. It was Helena's line, bookmark, go back. Treat me like your dog. Kick me, strike me, neglect me, ignore me, so long as I can follow you. He'd once written that line out by hand. It was Simon's own note. A yearning to be loved.